Well, good afternoon, everyone. And we are here for a joint committee meeting between both our Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee and our Education and Culture Committee. I am very happy to be co-chairing this with Councilmember Reamer, who actually asked for the briefing on this topic to talk about talent pipelines and career pathways that are happening post-COVID-19. Myself and my office have done a lot of work, as have all of my colleagues on both PHED and ENC committees, as well as across the county council and the county executive, understanding that we have to do everything we can to ensure that not only are we creating pathways for those that are currently matriculating through our education system, but also for those who are currently employed or underemployed or unemployed, who are looking for different kind of pathways that really tie into future-proofing the ability for them to continue to remain employed. We've seen so many different industries that have changed so much over the years. Many people have unfortunately lost their jobs because technology has taken over. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing our workforce, our young people, for these jobs of the future. It is incredibly important. Just today, I received a notification on the board of directors for the ALS Association and was briefed about 4 departures from the ALS Association, one of which was a gentleman who had taken coding during the pandemic and was now going to be employed as a coder. While we miss him, certainly as an AT specialist with ALS, the reality is that these opportunities abound throughout our society. And we want to make sure we're doing everything within our capability to ensure that folks have every single opportunity that's afforded to them. And so from that perspective, it's very exciting to see that our institutes of higher education and our K-12 system are working hand in hand together to ensure that just that happens. Let me turn to Chair Reamer for any opening remarks. And I would ask my colleagues, if you have a request to speak, that you just text me and let me know. That's how we'll progress through both of these items that we have for us today. Chair Reamer.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. Really delighted to be here with you today and excited to continue our dialogue about this topic. This was I think the first meeting that we had at the start of this term was on talent pipelines. And it was an awesome meeting. And we have seen a lot of enthusiasm from our partners in the educational sector and the economic development arena. And there's just a growing focus on this. It's so important for 2 reasons to me. First, to fuel our economic progress. You know, we know that companies need access to talent, and talent is the #1 driver of their success. So, A, we want to fuel our future prosperity by providing the workforce that our companies need. But B, makes it, I think, more compelling is the equity element, that what we want is for any kid in this county or any person in this county to have a pathway into jobs that are here, that the jobs that we're creating are jobs that are open to everybody. And so from the youngest age, they're seeing what those opportunities are, and they're beginning to identify themselves as on a pathway to any of those choices. I have to say I have a somewhat new personal insight into the pathways. As a parent, my oldest son will be in high school next year. And so I am going through the process of seeing all the options that are available on MCPS for high school students. And of course I knew them, because we hear about them from the council, but to see them as a parent, to see your child could apply to a biotechnology focused program or an engineering focused program. And, it's exciting. It is really, it's just a sign of organizations that are driving forward. I think there's always more that we can do, and we're going to hear about that today. And I hope we'll be able to continue to build and strengthen these programs over the next remainder of this year and in the budget next year. But it's terrific to see the alignment, and I'm really glad for the conversation. So thank you very much, and I look forward to our discussion.
Well, here to that, and certainly with our it's funny when I just reflect back on what we used to call ourselves, Councilmember Reamer. We were the young guns, and now we're about to hand this off to the young guns, Councilmember Friedson and Councilmember Jawando, who's joined us. And so But it really is great because we started some great conversations and started some great work. And so we get to look back on that and see the progress that we've made. You know, what's happened with Worksource Montgomery, who we'll hear from, as well as universities at Shady Grove, MCPS, and Montgomery College. I mean, the transformation in terms of what we've seen that's happened with these different departments and institutions has just been immense. And it's because of a lot of our pushing and because of the vision of the greater community that we represent that really was asking for this. And so it really is exciting to see it all come to fruition now. Let me turn to Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. No, I realized I was left out of the whole young gun conversation, but I guess I will consider myself to be the sage and very wise.
Never mention a woman's age. That's what my mother always told me.
That's why I said a sage and wise. You know, we'll add those as the veteran of the county council. It is very exciting to have this conversation and reflect on the fact of what can happen next. It is truly extraordinary to realize that we stuck together as a body to make sure that we could put forth a strategy for our Worksource Montgomery, taking into consideration these exact issues. And boy, it was right before the pandemic, right? So now, I mean, this morning we had a Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee when we were having an incredible, session, an oversight session on where technology is going, where our own departments are taking this whole notion of technology. And Director Roper did say that, this pandemic has accelerated technology issues and, the usage and application by 7 years. And so when you think of that and you start connecting the dots, which we did with our economic development platform, we're connecting all those dots to say that this piece is a fundamental piece of our economic development strategy and also of where we're taking this county. And if indeed things have been, accelerated considerably with the pandemic, we've got to make sure that we're right there to meet this moment as well. So it is very exciting to see what can happen. And Councilmember Reamer, I heard you and I had a little bit of nostalgia because I'm like, I'm remembering when my daughters were entering, high school. And it's awesome to see that now they are like super engaged and excited and really making waves in their own right in their places of work. And it's all due to the extraordinary education and opportunities they got here in the county. So to be able to offer that to all students, young people who are now seeking to, to reintegrate themselves into the job market, it's only even, more exciting. So I appreciate this. I appreciate the holistic approach in which this body has, really framed this issue and how we continue to connect it to all of those redevelopment projects or master plans that we have adopted and all those opportunities. That's what makes Montgomery County, a great place. So, thank you for this opportunity to, dig deeper into all of these areas.
Absolutely, very well said. So let me let my colleagues and just remind them, if you do have comments, questions, thoughts, please by all means just text me and let me know. I'll be running our joint meeting today, and then our goal in this whole process is to really have a free-flowing discussion. One of the things that I've liked about our Education and Culture Committee meetings as of recent is that we've really been able to delve into a lot of the subjects and avoid too long of a presentation that really doesn't give us an opportunity to just have a discussion about the pertinent issues and any questions that we may have. And so we'll certainly try and facilitate that today. I know that we do have a presentation, a short presentation that's prepared by Montgomery College about the biotech bootcamp case study and the great success that we have there. So I certainly want to turn it over to them to do that. And then we can start asking some of the questions around the case study, as well as look to our other agencies, both MCPS as well as USG and Worksource Montgomery, to see from them what they're seeing as trends, other kinds of things that we may be able to do to help support. So I did want to turn it over to Mr. Smith, legislative analyst, but also acknowledge the great work of Nicole Rodriguez-Hernandez and Ms. Essie McGuire, who all contributed to this great packet and kind of summarized some of the details, as well as highlighted some of the questions we may want to think about as we're talking through the next steps and some of the issues that we have still before us. So with that, let me turn it to you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Rice. And as you noted, this was a partnership packet. Much like the talent pipeline and our career pathways, there's a lot involved, and we were collaborating with all of the education institutions and Workforce Montgomery on this. And so acknowledge all of the great folks involved on this, and also was not just a sole packet on my own, but I'm the one that I guess drew the short straw today to get to speak briefly. Mr. Rice, you've already covered a lot of what we're going to go through, so I won't belabor the details again, just to highlight that the committees had a discussion on March 15th of this year, where the institutions and our partner organizations shared some of what they're doing to address the unemployment and career pathways due to COVID. As Mr. Reamer noted, this update was requested. We were hoping to do it in July, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we're now doing it in October. But nonetheless, as you said, I'll hand it over to Montgomery College for them to quickly walk through a presentation on the biotech bootcamp. As we were meeting with the organizations and education institutions, it seemed like this was a great way to sink our teeth into some of the lessons learned based on the committee's request last time, such as the infrastructure needs to enhance our career pathways, the efforts that are needed to scale programs up, and in particularly, how do we take some of our lessons learned and apply it to other industries such as mental health, PHED, and early education and care industries. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Rice, and then Montgomery College can do their presentation. I believe council staff will be advancing the slides, so we'll need to be able to share screen here soon. And then, as you noted, following the presentation, it's a free-form conversation with all of our partners here. Committee members can certainly use the questions that are there. The organizations are prepared to talk about those questions, but if there's other questions that committee members want to ask, it's your time. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Rice. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. And so I know from Montgomery College today, we have our good friends, Dr. Sanjay Rai, who's the Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs, Mr. George Payne, who's the Vice President and Provost of Workforce Development and Continuing Education, and Steve Greenfield, our Dean of Business, Information Technology and Safety. So I want to thank you all for being here today. Dr. Rai, I'll turn it over to you to kind of kick things off for us and go through the presentation. Let me just say thank you. I've been saying a lot of that over the past couple of weeks, but certainly all of our institutions as well as departments that have answered the call when it comes to response to COVID have been incredibly important. And I can't thank you enough, understanding that biotech led, and Councilmember Reamer and I talk about this often, to where biotech led when it came to industries that were at the forefront, and to be able to assimilate our folks in the community with, biotech entities and get them prepared to enter into the workforce is amazing. I mean, my sister-in-law, who is a Montgomery College graduate, now is at Novavax and was at AstraZeneca. And it's just, these are the kinds of success stories that I continue to see across this county. There's so much opportunity that abounds if we prepare and give folks the opportunity. That's all we have to do. We prepare and give them the opportunity, and the success will come. And so from that perspective, we just really are appreciative for the innovative work that Montgomery College did in setting this up. And so with that, I turn it to you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice, and good afternoon, everyone. We are very delighted to have this conversation and share some of the experiences with our biomanufacturing bootcamp, how it is started, the kind of case studies, and how it can be expanded to some of the other sectors of our economy. I think someone from the IT will start our PowerPoint, and let's start the presentation and go to the next slide. So in the summer of last year, our community hosted Rebound Montgomery roundtable conversation. And some of the wonderful ideas came out of that. And one was certainly, how do we grow homegrown talent pipeline, where all educational institutions, community, business partners working together and come up with short-term training that allows employees, particularly in vulnerable population, to get into career paths with family sustainable salaries, and also more stable career and stable jobs. Let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So why did we choose biotechnology or biomanufacturing area as a possibility for this bootcamp. When we had that conversation in June of 2020, the unemployment rate at Montgomery County was 9%. As a community, we have never seen 9% unemployment rate. Then if you look at demography of people who are unemployed, it's very clear that first generation immigrant, low income jobs, people of color, they were in high proportion in that area. So while this was a challenge, there was a silver lining as well. Our area was also receiving significant investment in life sciences industries. $8 billion of direct investment in our life sciences industries. 11 companies were expanding their presence here. Councilmember Rice mentioned Novavax. They were one of the companies that were expanding. And 9 new companies, some major companies, global companies, decided to relocate here. So instant job growth of 1,300 jobs just because of these 20 companies, 11 expansion and 9 new companies. So direct 1,300 jobs, and we were hearing from employers in the region, our county and neighboring areas, 3,000 jobs were open. So we had residents who needed immediate access to good paying jobs. And we had companies that needed talent immediately in a very short amount of time. So that's the challenge and opportunity. Both were presented at the same time. So this idea of biotechnology bootcamp was never tried here, or most likely it was never tried anywhere else. So this was an employer-driven and employer-influenced curriculum. Employers provided the curriculum. Quality Biological, AstraZeneca, and other companies sat with our faculty to design this curriculum. This training had to be short-term. Why? Because people who lost jobs, they didn't have time or resources to get to a traditional degree program that often takes 2 years, 3 years, and others. And employers also needed talent right away. So Montgomery College provided state-of-the-art training. We have great facilities, thanks to Council. Our Bioscience Education Center at Montgomery College with all the modern labs, like we have GMP training manufacturing facility in other labs. And of course, this was provided to no cost to students because our students and residents were not able to pay for this type of training. It was 64 hours of instruction that was done in 1 month. 1 month, 64 hours. And 2 boot camps have been completed at Montgomery College so far. Let's go to the next slide. Partnership is certainly key to this success. Our partners at Worksource Montgomery were very engaged. They provided us with funds. They recruited and identified participants from unemployed and low-income groups. And after the training was completed, Worksource Montgomery placed those students into jobs. That's the success. That's the first boot camp that happened in January of this year. The second one happened in June, and this was funded through state of Maryland. We had an existing grant, and we wrote to state of Maryland for permission to use that grant for this boot camp purpose. Employers identify needs, gave input on curriculum, and certainly offered jobs to our graduates. Go to the next slide. So some of the demography of our students, there were 24 students, 50% male, 50% female, age range, and there's certainly ethnicity from the county. Let's go to the next slide. So a strong placement rate. These are lifeboat jobs. And they are essentially, the titles of these jobs were lab technician, manufacturing associates, these kinds of jobs with essential skills. And these are entry-level jobs in biomanufacturing field. 75% of the students who applied for jobs got the jobs. Some of them decided to stay and join our credit program in biotechnology. So I think that was, we take that as a success as well. Let's go to the next slide. What are our lessons learned? Short-term training works for biomanufacturing industry. It may work for other industries as well, but it has to be data-driven. Jobs have to be present in the areas for which we are providing training. It has to be employer-driven. Employer has to provide curriculum, and they have to kind of approve the curriculum and then accept the students into their organization after the training is complete. As you saw, for this particular case, high job placement rate, 75% who applied for jobs were accepted into jobs. Training is recognized across employers. So if you do biomanufacturing bootcamp, you can go to AstraZeneca, you can go to Quality Biological, you can go to GSK, you can go to any biomanufacturing related companies. And certainly a quick access to entry-level jobs. And certainly career progression is there as well, because Montgomery College is already working on providing credit for prior learning, stackable credentials. The students who do this training, it can be recognized to our credits in our credit program. Let's go to the next slide. How does it work? Funding is certainly an important part of this equation. It has to be affordable, because for these types of programs, as you know, federal Pell Grants are not applicable. So that is a challenge in making it happen. Partnerships between all educational institutions, we need an ecosystem approach, and that's the way it works best. Wraparound services, career navigation is also important, and not just at the entry point. A student finishes a boot camp, placing students in job, but then also assisting that students in career progression within that field. So there has to be service that has to be provided for an extended period of time for that students. Having right facilities and equipment is very important. We are very fortunate that county has created all these wonderful facilities on all three campuses. Tacoma Park will be joining very soon, where we can provide these types of services. Having qualified faculty who understands the academics, but most importantly, faculty who understand how industry works is also very, very important. 4 weeks is important, 4 weeks to 4 months. Taking more than 4 months is not helpful, particularly for the residents who have lost jobs or who are underemployed in the present situation. Now, we also need to understand that everything is not boot campable. Some of the areas may take more than 4 weeks, but 4 months, I think, is a reasonable amount of time. Let's go to the next slide. So short-term training is certainly our business. I share this brochure with you. We bring this out a couple of times every year, where we have hundreds of short-term training. We focus on in-demand jobs. So I mentioned our unemployment rate going to 9%. Today, I think it's around 5.5 or 6%. But there are areas like healthcare where unemployment is 1%. IT, cybersecurity is less than 3%. Same goes for commercial driver license, where you know there are a lot of jobs and companies are looking for employees. Upskilling vulnerable populations, excellent program, apartment maintenance technician programs. Finished program, $25 an hour, $30 an hour job is ready. Reskilling dislocated workers or career changers. One example is our wonderful clinical trial project management program, 4-month program, completely affordable. We started this program 10 years ago, but during this pandemic, so much clinical trials are going on that companies are coming to the college and asking for graduates from this program. Customized in-demand training. Our companies are also in a situation now that they want customized training. So we are training for about 70 organizations already. I gave you an example of Infosys, that's a global IT firm, and we are providing customized training for their employees in a certain IT-related area. It's an intersection of IT and health sciences area. Several industry-related partnerships. You are probably aware of the program that we created for 911 dispatch technicians. Challenge certainly is the funding for these programs. We can't expect the students to pay for this training, especially residents who are unemployed. There is no way, they don't have time, they don't have resources. So short term, and at the same time, it has to be free. And Pell Grants, as I said earlier, are not applicable for these types of training. Let's go to the next slide. And let me end with this, that boot camps work is helping change our residents, their lives. And the idea that is started with biomanufacturing, this was never tried before. I believe we are the first ones in our community, is the first one to try that idea. But that idea can be scaled up to other sectors of our economy as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Rai. I really appreciate that. And I think it's really important for us to understand about some of the potential that exists. I have a couple questions, but I want to turn to my colleagues first and give them an opportunity as chair to answer or ask any particular questions. So any of my colleagues, Mr. Co-Chair, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. So how many of the boot camp students were you able to get into jobs? And do you think that boot camps are a model we should continue replicating, or you already have all of the programs that, you have a lot of programs that are tailored towards specific workforce needs. So to what extent should we be thinking about expanding and investing more in the existing programs that are, degree granting versus, or certification granting versus, creating more different kinds of boot camp models?
Thank you, Councilman Rima. That's an excellent question. First of all, how many students got jobs? Every student who wanted a job got a job. So only 75% of the students who went through the boot camp wanted a job right away, and they all got it.
Okay.
So in some way, 100%, right? Others wanted to join credit program. One person wanted to stay in the current job or something like that. So that it worked quite well. In terms of what areas we should think about boot camp and short-term training, number one criteria is in a sector of our economy where we have a lot of job openings. So preparing students where there are no jobs, it's not going to work. So healthcare, for example, has 1%, right? Early child care is another area. IT is another area where 3% unemployment. Looking at where unemployment is low, where the number of jobs are there. So biomanufacturing, anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 jobs are there. So we have to scale up. So right now we test case, small number of students, more students in biomanufacturing boot camp. Then coming up other areas, either boot camps are possible or short-term training is certainly possible in pretty much every area where we have a lot of job openings. So we should think about offering short-term training. But after short-term training, an entry-level job. But after providing that entry-level opportunity, we have to follow that students for extended period of time, making sure that that student has a career progression there by providing them more non-credit, more credit opportunities, eventually a credit degree and a 4-year degree within our ecosystem, MCPS, MC, and USG.
Great. I'll pass it to my colleagues and maybe I'll come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I did want to do also while I'm preparing to just make sure that we don't have any of our other colleagues who have some questions is ask our colleagues from both MCPS as well as WorkSource Montgomery to go ahead and turn on their cameras, because I think that as a part of a greater discussion around what it is that we're looking to do here, it's going to involve everyone, right? And so boot camps are certainly one opportunity for us. And so I'm curious, especially when it comes to our folks at universities at Shady Grove. So Dr. Kanemian, welcome to you, who's the Executive Director of Universities at Shady Grove. Robin DiNicola, who's our Chief Student Affairs Officer, Barry Lang, who's the Chief Strategy Officer, and Steve Simon, who's the Interim Director of Marketing and Communications. Welcome to the four of you. I mean, we have our beautiful biosciences and biomedical building, and I always get the name wrong, but it's a beautiful building. In fact, it's so beautiful and so awesome, it's getting an award tonight, so I'm excited about that. You know, what are we seeing along those lines in terms of how folks are preparing? You know, we talk about the highest level of performance, it's represented in your very building. And so I'm just curious as to what you're hearing from private sector, as well as what you're hearing from students, as to what it is that they need to ensure that they're successful matriculating into the workforce.
Thank you, Chair Rice. I appreciate it. I'll kick off on that first, and I just want to put into some context. I want to thank Sanjay for the great presentation and the work there. USG has been also involved with UMBC and Workforce Montgomery in a set of boot camps as well that were also very successful for students who had some college or college degree in that process. So it's a great model and it's ready to scale. And we've learned a lot from those initial pilots. What are we seeing in terms of demand, what the workforce needs? We talk every day with people in the biosciences industry and biotechnology industry, with the Maryland Technology Council and others, Life Science Advisory Board. And in addition to the technical skills and skills at the bachelor's level and skills at the master's level, the scientific skills, there is a need for a wide range of other types of preparation. One is just career readiness. Students need to be career ready. They need to have leadership skills, team building skills, strong communication and writing skills. They need to be able to work in a very diverse environment. So there's a lot of the career readiness that we are focusing on at USG in partnership with MC and MCPS in order to focus on career readiness so students can step right away, day one, into these jobs and be ready to go. Another thing that we hear, in addition to the scientific skills and things as well, is the need for some multidisciplinary problem-solving skills. Employers are looking for people who can solve problems, who can tackle problems, who can translate science into practice. And so this translation work, this ability to come in and tackle problems, the creative thinking and problem-solving skills that are an important part of that. A big part of that is an entrepreneurial mindset. And here at Shady Grove, our lab and other opportunities with our partners, students are getting that experience as well. So that's another big part of what we're hearing as well. And then in addition—
Recording in progress.
In addition to the scientific and these other things as well, there's a real need for management, project management, and a wide range of talents, data analytics, and other more cross-sectional skill sets that are needed here. When as we're moving forward, thinking about what comes next, thinking about the challenge that you all put before us in March, you said, what comes next? You gave us the big, bold challenge to say, what does the next educational paradigm look like for Montgomery County? We took that seriously. And we started looking specifically in the life sciences, but we are looking in the big picture of what comes next. And we're looking at the ecosystem for Montgomery County is what comes next. And the infrastructure of that ecosystem is pathways into the life sciences, pathways into a wide range of STEM degrees, pathways into healthcare and behavioral health, into public service and into social sciences. We need to be thinking holistically, all of us together, on how to build these pathways across Montgomery County into key priority areas and how we ensure that seamless educational experience. We need to be focusing on career readiness as a component of that. We need to be focusing on business engagement throughout, not just at the end when people are looking for jobs, but business engagement, just like Sanjay outlined in the boot camps with business engagement in the design of that curriculum. We need to have a very integrated approach, which the Joint Business Council has been doing a great job of working on. Most importantly, we need to have a data-driven approach to what we are doing. We need to be able to see the impact of these efforts, how to improve these efforts. We need to focus on the student experience and build these pathways in a way that facilitates the student experience all across the pathway, and we learn from that and ensure that there's an equitable approach that we are taking in what we're doing. So I think these are some of the core components of the future. I think these hit at your question, Chair Rice, which is, what are businesses looking for? Career readiness. They're looking for their own kind of engagement as well in this process. They want to be partners in this effort, not sidelined and not just coming in at the end. They are looking for evidence of the work that we're doing, that it's delivering as needed. So these are some of the components we've been thinking of, really pushing this idea of the educational ecosystem of the future, and hopefully addressing some of the challenges that, as your question suggests, what are employers looking for in this area in particular. So I'll pause there and see if some of my colleagues wanted to add anything else, if that's okay, or whatever you'd like to do.
Anyone else from USG? Steve, Mary? Okay. Let me just say what you said spawned a number of other questions and another part of the discussion. And I don't want to get lost from the biotech part and close that out as we go towards this other part of the discussion as well. And it blends together, but I did want to close out a couple things. So Dr. Rai, it's very clear to me from Dr. Kanemian's comments that this is definitely a beneficial program. One of the concerns that's been addressed that you highlighted is about affordability, and understanding that people who are unemployed don't have then a lot of money laying around to be able to say, hey, I'm going to pay for this great program to be able to retool myself, understanding that the investment certainly reaps the benefits, right? We understand that. But if you got to keep the lights on and keep paying the rent, then it's very hard to then pull something from that to be able to say, and I'm going to double down on me in terms of my job sustainability and growth into the future. So that is certainly something that we need to be mindful of. So the question is, how large can we scale up? How much would that be in terms of cost outlay to be able to offer programs like this, as you've done, that have been to where, and well, let me ask it this way, because I think that it could be twofold. I'm always one who believes that those who can pay should pay, but those who can't shouldn't have to, right? And it helps to allay some of the costs. It helps to offset, right? So for those who actually have the money to pay, I'd love to see them be able to pay for the program, to be able to do the certification. So some sort of, financial aid, but internal, not to where it's, and I understand the limitations with Pell Grant, but certainly something in which the county partnering with, Montgomery College, maybe involving some other nonprofits. We could talk about, many of my colleagues have great relationships with the biotech sector itself. And wouldn't the biotech sector want to invest in creating a workforce pipeline, right? And so maybe there's some talk about private support that we can incorporate in there as well. So talk to me a little bit about what something like that would look like, spinning off of what Councilmember Reamer was talking about, just in terms of how you would envision a program getting larger, having more participants, but also retaining that affordability aspect that you highlighted is so important.
So certainly there are two challenges. It's thus not just the money. People who have lost jobs, they don't have time either. So that's why the current model doesn't work, and that's what we have learned in the pandemic. That a typical traditional higher education model was challenged for at least a certain segment of our population quite a bit. So finding resources for the short-term training is extremely important, especially for this population. So that's something I think is we need to do. The other is the ecosystem approach. MCPS, MC, and NUSG. And where we have to do some work is if a student gets a boot camp, goes and work in biomanufacturing for 1 year, and gets credit for prior learning and stackable credential towards a degree program at Montgomery College in biotechnology, the student doesn't have to take every course again because the student has learned by working in the industry. Then from that 2-year program, when the student goes to 4-year program at USD, all those credentials will be accepted. So that is a pathway within the county. So that's one thing. So already, a student is working, a student has some resources. So that's financial point of view, one thing. The other, there are federal opportunities, National Science Foundation and others that provides the scholarship, at least for low income students. But your idea about working with the biotechnology industry is a really brilliant one. Industry needs talent. Industry needs homegrown talent. And I think a collective request from the community, I'm pretty sure industry will also respond. In case of biotechnology, I will also add one thing that, as you know, through council support, Montgomery College and MCPS have developed a very robust early college, middle college, and PHED program. This year, we have started biotechnology early college program at Germantown campus. So that is in biotechnology area. But Councilmember Reamer, your son has wonderful opportunities as early college at our Tacoma Park campus, computer science, business, many areas. You save 2 years of college. I'm always recruiting. so you 2 years of time, 2 years of college, it's all there. So, but if you look at our early college program, middle college program, they are all geared towards sectors of our economy where there are a lot of jobs. They are in networking. They are in health sciences. They are in nursing, computer science, engineering. And for all those programs, we have pathways, we have degree programs. Either they are already there at universities that Shady Grove, or Dr. Kerenium and all of us are working with 4-year schools to bring some of those programs at USD. So I think that pathway is there. We need to formalize it better. And certainly an early college or middle college is pretty much free for our students. But when they transfer to 4-year schools, I think we have to think about how to fund that part of our education as well.
Well, Dr. Wright, thank you for that. I think that again, and you've invoked MCPS's name a number of times. So I want to welcome Nikki Hazel, who's the Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction Programs. So thank you very much. And Scott Murphy, who's the Director of the Department of College Career Readiness and District-Wide Programs. Elaine Chang Baxter, who is the Director of the Partnerships Unit, and Genevieve Floyd, who is the Supervisor of Career and Post-Secondary Partnerships. So welcome to the 4 of you as well. And also, I see Mr. Featherstone, who's the Executive Director of Worksource Montgomery, and John Hattery, who's Director of Strategic Initiatives, because when we invoked about getting our private sector involved and engaged, I know that's the work that you do within Worksource Montgomery, and so certainly is directly aligned. So what I want to do is, if I don't have any other questions directly around biotech and the boot camp itself, I want to pivot into another part of this discussion, which is really around, look, we've seen, and you heard from Dr. Rai about the unemployment rates with the pandemic. We've also seen that when it comes to some of the ways in which we've gotten out of our high unemployment rate. I think most recently we were at now 3.9%, although we've been at the level of 2 point something, or we're at 5 and it was at 3.9. I can't remember what the numbers are, but I know that we're still off. Councilmember Friedson, I know you're a stickler for this. I think you might know what those numbers are. Do you remember offhand? Now, Mr. Smith, do you know?
Sure. Currently, it's about 5.9%.
5. Thank you.
Our low was about 2.8.
There we go.
And apologies for jumping in there in the middle, but
No. Thank you. That's what I wanted. It's really important. But those are the kinds of things where, again, so by doing some of the work, Dr. I, that you talked about, by getting folks who wanted to have jobs and wanted to be connected, directly employed, that's how we're helping to impact this. But there are, again, coming from my job before coming to the to elected office, to both the Maryland State House and to County Council, was working in the hospitality industry. So many of those jobs have yet to come back. And I don't know if they will. There's a new model that's being looked at when it comes to, just as you now go to a hotel and, you know, for a long time, for years, pre-pandemic, you said whether or not you wanted towels done and whether or not you wanted your linens changed every day, because at home, you don't do that. And so at the hotel, you know, there are a lot of people who are mindful of climate change and what we're doing there. And so therefore wanted to be more sensitive to washing things more than they need to be, all that kind of stuff. And so the industry changed from that respect. I feel as though this industry is going to change again regarding housekeepers and others who work within the hospitality industry. So some of those things are going away, at least in terms of numbers, right? So you may still have housekeepers at hotels, certainly by all means. But the reality is that cohort, that same cohort, is not going to be there, nor are the hours going to be there. And so that makes a significant difference in terms of what it is. So what career pathways have you seen? And this is for anybody out there. I'm just throwing this out there in general. Just please, you know, just jump in. But what are some of those careers that you've seen where we're starting to see significant reduction in terms of the number of employees, and, you know, what we're seeing in terms of where some of those folks may be going in terms of their skill sets and how we're helping to retool them to get into different career pathways?
So you started with hospitality. I think that's one area that has been impacted quite a bit. And hospitality jobs, at least they will not come back in the same number. But what we understood during our biotechnology bootcamp, that hospitality workers have some transferable skills. They follow standard operating procedures, right? If you're a cook, or if you're waiting, or if you're working in hotel, you have to follow certain procedures. And biomanufacturing also, of course, you have to understand science, you have to learn how to use certain equipment, but the essential thing, you follow standard operating procedures. If you don't do that, then you heard in the newspaper what happens, right? So I think that all these workers, we shouldn't think that they have no skills. We have to understand what they're doing and what those skills are transferable to other sectors where we have jobs. And that's the way we have to think, because time is important. 5.9% unemployment rate is still today is unheard for our community. It's quite a bit, especially if you look at the cost of living and other pressures. Right? So we have to do something very quickly. And jobs are there in certain areas. We have to find a way to provide skills to people who have lost jobs to get into the careers and areas of our segments of our economy where there are more jobs. I mean, that's what we need to do.
Anybody else? Dr. Kademian, please.
Sure. I think Dr. I makes really important points. There's also, it's not only certain skills are transferable, but the digitization of so much of our work is going to happen on a large scale. Look at the construction industry. The construction industry is one of the least digitized industries anywhere. And now there are platforms, there's a movement towards digitizing the entire construction effort so that anybody at any time can know how many doorknobs are on site or how many nails are in the building, right? This is changing the insurance of the construction industry, it's changing the efficiency, the timing, all of that. So people in construction are going to need to know how to manage a database, how to respond, how to utilize this data interface. The same with hospitality. Hospitality was highlighted in the recent Connect the Dots report. The technology associated with the hospitality industry. So much of hospitality is going to go towards scheduling through apps and requesting towels through apps. And, there's going to be a transition to technology in a lot of these areas. And the pandemic has sped that up. I think Council Member Navarro said that we sped across 7 years of development in the short span of the pandemic. So I think learning, the digitization skills, and these are things that can be taught in boot camps. These are things that can bring people up to speed in micro-credentialing, or, in addition to whole degrees, that's possible as well. I also just don't want to lose sight of the kind of post-baccalaureate possibilities that are here as well. There are so many possibilities in the master space and the certificate space for growing skills, for growing talent, that we need to stay focused on as well in this.
Yeah, I could agree more. And I think that, again, when I look at my sister-in-law, like I said, as a primary example, she is achieving success, but if she wants to continue to go through the company, may end up going to get even more educational experience so that she can justify even higher positions and go up through the company. And so it really is one where we don't want to lose sight of that. I think that a lot of these, especially when it comes to certification, like you talked about, Dr. Rai, gets you in the door, right? So it gives you those entry-level positions to establish that relationship between you and the particular company. But then the success, some of it is warranted by your work ethic and what you're doing within your performance within the company, but also some of it is limited to your educational experience and some of the background that you have. And so from that perspective, we can't lose sight of that's a key component of this, as well as folks who want to enter into those kind of levels, whether it's dealing, being a professor or doing high-level think tank work or working with one of our government agencies, right? And so those are the kinds of things where they do require more than, you may get out of an entry-level lab bench, but actually doing some very comprehensive, work when it comes to the biotech sector. I mean, there's just so many different things that are out there that we want to make sure, like I said, again, that we're providing those opportunities to everyone. Anybody else? Oh yeah, please, Mary.
Yeah, Craig, sorry. I just wanted to add a little bit. I know the focus you're talking about, what industries are going to need, are losing employees and need to be retrained. But I think this focus on really upskilling and training people that are in low paying jobs across many industries, especially in areas of need. Those areas of need, we've talked about life sciences, but areas of need at behavioral health. Certainly with the pandemic, behavioral health is a big concern, not only for the county, but then for the school system, teachers within the school system, healthcare workers at all levels are areas of need that we can shift those that have lost jobs into with these types of boot camps or retraining, maybe not in all STEM areas, but in multiple areas. So I just don't want to lose sight of that opportunity as well.
Mary, that is an excellent point, and it really does speak to that ecosystem that needs to continue to exist across all realms, right? So going from MCPS to Montgomery College to USG to the like, I mean, it really is one of those where that connectivity and allowing people to have different entrance and off ramps is also a key component of that. I don't see any other
throughout their lives. This is a dynamic cycle of continually upscaling. And I think the early college and other programs between MCPS and MC are really in key areas to do just that, as well as going to the 4-year and graduate programs.
Absolutely. Let me turn to Councilmember Navarro and then Chair Reamer.
Thank you. This exchange reminded me of the conversations that we have had with joint committees regarding some of the shortages that we have both experienced in a chronic fashion, but now with the pandemic, it's even worse. So we have had discussions around, for example, bilingual mental health professionals, nurses. We seem to be really struggling with a lot of those kinds of professions as well. And so I just didn't want to lose the opportunity to connect that data here because we are we keep having those conversations in other settings, but feel the urgency right now. And so, efforts like the Welcome Back Center, because that is another piece that I keep hearing time and time again, how we do have a very large immigrant community that they just need to, validate their credentials to find a way to boost that process. We're very lucky in that way that we have a lot of folks that could do that quickly. But there is no doubt, especially in the nursing profession, the burnout is real. And it is something that, I know we all hear about all the time. So wanted to elevate that again, given that when we're talking about the totality of our workforce development strategy, there's no doubt that we have had historic chronic gaps. But now, of course, with COVID-19 post-recovery, and I'm pleased that this council engaged with the executive early on in the pandemic to say, look, we can't wait until COVID-19 seems to be a thing of the past to start thinking about post-COVID-19 recovery. We need to start now. But this all has to be integrated somewhat here in our county to again figure that out. And the last thing I will say is that there's also a lot of conversation in the region with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments about, again, what does this look like for our region? What are some of the assets that a particular jurisdiction might have that can be leveraged in order to be part of this ecosystem for the region? So wanted to throw those things out there as points that we don't want to necessarily miss up front, so that we don't continually have the same conversation regarding all of the different industries.
Great points. Chair Reamer.
Thanks. Well, I'm eager to hear what our partners think is next. Dr. Kadamian, you mentioned that you heard our appeal to think big and come back to us. So I'm interested to know what you think we ought to be pressing forward on, and the college. We've talked a bit about replicating the boot camp model. So, I'm sure if you want to ask us whether that's something, we would like you to do, I can speak for myself and say, yes, I'd love to see more of those. This is a moment of real opportunity. We're hearing about the workforce. What are they calling the dynamic now? The Great Resignation, that people are leaving their careers in certain sectors to try to find sectors that pay better with more opportunity. And, so let's open some doors for them. So, I can certainly say I would love to see some proposals that we could chew over here and see how we can expand the resources that are available for this important work. Dr. Kadami, did you want to? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity, Chair Reamer. So we have been thinking big and boldly since you all challenged us. And I think there's a big vision out there that we can start taking a crack at step by step. And I think there are really concrete things we can do to take a crack at step by step. So we've seen across all of our conversations today, we've put forth this model of the pathway, and the pathway of it, that is career oriented, not necessarily a pathway into a specific degree program, but a pathway into a career. And building those pathways deeply in partnership with business, of course, with MC and MCPS and all of our USG institutions going forward, and the role of career readiness in all of that as well, the role of point of need learning, so that it's not just, as Mary said, it's not just up to college, it's continuing, it's a lifelong learning, and it's data driven. I think that could be a big picture for us in terms of what we'd like to get to, and thinking about what those pathways ought to be for Montgomery County and how we incentivize people along those pathways, both in terms of the early college incentives are fantastic. Imagine an early college incentive in places where we need high demand. So we need more teachers in Montgomery County. So imagine an incentive where students graduate from both Montgomery College and MCPS with an associate's degree, and they roll right into a teaching program at one of our partner institutions at USG, and their tuition is covered for them if they promise to come back to Montgomery County and teach for at least 3 or 4 years, right? We could do so much with public service, with teaching, with data analysts, with, biotechnology, right? If we want to really incentivize these fields, let's create financial incentives. Let's make it easy for students. I think, Chair Reamer, for me, the big motivating factor in all of this is the statistic that 74% of students in higher education are non-traditional students. They are married, they are working full-time or part-time, they are the first in their family to go to college, they have children. They are not looking for a 4-year on-campus, away-from-home experience. That number of students in higher education is shrinking. The students that are growing are the non-traditional students. And those are the students who are attending Montgomery College and they're attending USG. And they're coming out of MCPS. And we need to figure out how education weds to the workforce needs for these students. That is our challenge. And it's not necessarily a traditional degree program solution. So we have to think creatively about how we meet the needs of those students. And these pathways give us a way to think about it, design it, plan for it, build it, and continuously improve the experience for those students. And so I think there are things that we can do. Let's focus on teaching. Let's focus on teaching and think about the pathway for teaching to solve some of the teacher shortage problems right here in Montgomery County. And let's think about how we can incentivize that. Can we invest in tuition for students going on to get their 4-year degree if they promise to come back, right? Let's invest in ACEs in a deep and meaningful way, because ACEs is a brilliant pathway model that we've learned so much from, but ACEs is held together with Band-Aids between all of our institutions. Like, let's systemically invest in that. Let's figure out how to build a real sustainable pathway for students who have some of the highest need, and have that become just part of the infrastructure of every single pathway in Montgomery County so that every student can be met where they are. So I think there's some really clear things we can do to make this happen. Career readiness. Let's invest in the talent and the infrastructure we need to make career readiness an experience of every single student across Montgomery County, so they all graduate career ready and they're all ready to step into their job on day one. More of the boot camps. So I think there are a number of things we can do, but if we center pathways as our model and we zoom in on certain pathways, I think there's a number of places where investment, we can learn from that investment, we can intentionally pilot that, and we can grow it and scale it in the county as well. So I hope that gives you a sense of how we're thinking about things, Chair Reamer.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that response. I guess at the council, I think our role is to hopefully contribute to setting a big vision and then to try to find the resources to get there. So if you can, if the institutions, the partners can work together to bring us some ideas, we can try to find resources for them. So, if you would like to do that over the course of this fall, in time for us to consider enhancements. I know you'll be going through your own budget processes, which are important. And I think I'm asking you for ideas that you won't be able to otherwise include in your existing budget process, but I would certainly invite you to, share with us some opportunities that you think would be compelling. And I think perhaps ideally that weave together all of your resources and your assets, and at least we can see what we can, how we can build on them.
So I couldn't agree more, Chair Reamer. And I think that, again, basically, if I understand what you're asking, is really for our 3 educational partners to, now that we've asked you to think big, what those programs would be and how we could financially help to support them, right? So from that perspective, I think that's, this committee historically has continued to be incredibly supportive, always supporting Montgomery County Public Schools budget, always supporting Montgomery College's budget, always supporting what we could continue to do working with USG. So we've walked the walk and talked the talk. So it really is one where, for us, just let us know how we can continue to be supportive. I did want to give an opportunity for Ms. Hazel and for MCPS. I have you in the queue, Councilmember Jawando, so I got you. But I did want to hear just very quickly It doesn't have to be very quickly, but I did want to hear from Ms. Hazel and MCPS about where you see yourselves in the spectrum, what it is that you're seeing, and then I'll immediately turn to Councilmember Jawando, but did want to give you a chance to just give us what it is that MCPS is seeing with regards to our connected career pathways.
Yeah, so good afternoon. Nikki Hazel, Associate Superintendent in Curriculum and Instructional Programs. Good to see you, and it's been really interesting to hear the conversation and give us a lot of opportunities to reflect. Certainly, we're seeing very similar things as we look at where students are interested in terms of careers. Hospitality is an area that we don't see as much interest in, and we've been working to get more students to be a part of those programs. But when I hear you talk about certainly teaching is an area we know, and that really resonated with me. We know is an area that we are going to need and do need a lot more teachers. That bilingual piece and building our language programs is really critical. And we continue to want our students to aim towards that seal of biliteracy. But if we can couple that in some way with the teaching and literacy, bilingual education, I think that would be really strong. And then that behavioral health. That one really resonated with me. I think as we look at where we are with our students and our staff, we could certainly use more students and moving into that direction. So those are some things that stood out to me, and I'll turn it over to Scott and Elaine if they want to add.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Scott Murphy, Director of College and Career Readiness, and just want to enthusiastically co-sign everything that's been said about the concept of the ecosystem, about all of us working together around pathways, around career readiness, around employer engagement, around data-driven approaches, but always remembering that the idea of pathways starts very, very early. And so some of the high leverage strategies in MCPS, as many of you know, are working with our middle schoolers on partnerships like Montgomery College, partnerships like Kid Museum, feeding the talent pipeline very, very early. And as you know, the pathway development, the PHED model that we've talked about before, we are very ripe to expand, and we'll be bringing you ideas about that. As you've heard, dual enrollment, early college, just busting at the seams, about triple where it was the year before the pandemic. Scaling up opportunities for work-based learning, real life experiences, career readiness while in high school, critical part of the equation that we're working to bring to scale, not just in MCPS, but again, all of us working together as one voice to our employer community. I also want to mention the regional approach that Councilmember Navarro mentioned. We continue to work on what we're calling the Talent Ready Project, which is a grant-funded project alongside Prince George's, Fairfax, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore City, where we're all working together on pathway development, work-based learning, and employer signaling. And also some innovative new programs. We have a program for specifically for 12th graders who are working and have jobs and need an alternative path to finish their high school, begin post-secondary, while also getting support at a job. We'll also be launching other youth apprenticeship opportunities like Apprenticeship Maryland that, again, just lots of momentum underway here, K-12, but cannot be siloed in any kind of way, and is all about this entire ecosystem and the trajectory that we're talking about. So we in MCPS are fully committed to working with all the partners here to ensure that all of those things happen. As some of you have said, K to J.
Don't forget about my pre-K to J. Let me turn to Councilmember Jawando.
I'm going to say birth to J. Prenatal, as far back as we can go. And we want the parents to be upskilled as well. So, we want the whole kit and caboodle. Well, I really appreciate this conversation, and I'm glad I got to go after Mr. Murphy, because who knows. I'm glad you brought up my one of my things I really care about is the work-based learning opportunities. And, you know, I know we've been talking about that and we'll continue to talk about it as a key component of this overall strategy. And I really, really appreciated Dr. Kademian's call to action, I'll call it, for us to ramp up some things that we're doing and have been doing well, like ACEs, but also start some new things and new pathways that we can invest in and scale as well. You know, this sector, this strategy rather, is critical. And I got the chance, I'm glad also, Scott, you mentioned Talent Ready, which I got a chance to be familiar with early on as it was getting rolling. And those IT pathways, those are critically important. And we just have so many high demand, high need industries here that I think, you know, the trouble will be kind of nailing down, you know, getting to as many as we can, because there's a lot of pathways. But one of the questions I wanted to ask to the group, and whoever wants to, this might be first to Mr. Featherstone and his group, if he's still with us. You know, we always have this set of, and it's actually not just him, it could be anybody. We have this set of jobs that are open and available right now, right? And so we have the immediate need of how do we connect with the bootcamp model and other types of quick turnaround things that Montgomery College and others are really in USG with partners are great at doing. How do we get people into those, right, as quickly as possible? And I'd love folks to comment on if there's any particular, you know, recent trends we're seeing there, or ideas or strategies on that piece of the pie. Then we have this larger, you know, pathway issue. How are we preparing the best we can and understanding what the needs are going to be and projecting and trying to backfill and create that pipeline at every level. And so I guess that first question would be to whoever in the group wants to answer it. How, particularly as we work to recover from COVID, what are we seeing in those immediate jobs that are filled? And if we're having trouble, what is it? Is it a wage issue? Is it the training? Is it a combination? And do you have any thoughts about how we might approach and address that in a more comprehensive way?
Yeah, so I'll take the first crack at it, and it's good to be with the group again. So that is one thing that we are dealing with. We had a hospitality convening with our partners at Visit Montgomery a few weeks ago. We brought together some stakeholders and talked about what their needs are. And I think the universal theme was that we need people to fill the positions that we have open right now. So I think for WorkSource Montgomery, that relates to our community impact initiative. And we have a couple things going on, I think, in that regard. Number one, there is a MOU that's in process with the Maryland Department of Labor that will allow us, for the first time since I've been in workforce, to get complete access to UI data so that we can do targeted marketing and outreach to the unemployed residents of Montgomery County so that we can hopefully make those connections. But I think that, you know, with Montgomery County having less than 0.7 job seekers per job, there are, I think, a myriad of reasons for, you know, the issues with filling and retaining talent. But I think that wages, are, you know, atop that list because, it's a job seekers market. So, you know, whether you're at company A, B, or C, you have options. So you can really be selective at this point in time. So, you know, we're listening to our hospitality stakeholders. We're putting some things in place. We just recently closed down a grant relief program for hospitality and small businesses to help them with their bottom line so that they can be creative and offering incentives and so on to new employees that they're looking to onboard. But really, it's a matter for us of engaging those 31,000 plus unemployed residents who may not be aware of how we can connect the dots and match them with the employers and opportunities and training opportunities that are available so that we can help some of our partners fill those positions. So I think that's an exciting initiative, and our community impact team, once we get our bus here in Montgomery County, we'll be able to go to different pockets of the county and engage different residents that we wouldn't be able to do so otherwise. So that's what we've seen, but I'll pause if my colleague John Hattery has anything to add.
That's exciting to hear that you'll get that data and you'll be able to match. I've never heard that level of granularity. So that's a real opportunity. John, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for the opportunity. I can't emphasize enough the how much Workforce Montgomery's enjoyed being in partnership with the entire group as it related to the Bio Bootcamp. Our experience in recruitment is being leveraged not only for the Bio Bootcamp but for a number of industries. Montgomery College and Worksource are working on some construction career pathways work that we're looking to get a program started, after the first of the year. We've been partnered with the Winata apprenticeship, which just recently became registered. And so we are trying to flex our muscles, if you will, to get into as many communities as we possibly can in an effort to find not only the folks from the UI roles, but folks from other communities who, through our community impact team, going and meeting with community groups, community organizations, faith-based groups at their locations, having them get to know what options and services are available through WorkSource Montgomery in an effort to get the word out. And then, through our staff and through our Title I staff, which we are now doing, making those connections between the aptitude and the goals of those job seekers, and then the available training through all of our partners to get them to where they want to go. It's an exciting time to be part of WorkSource Montgomery. We've got a lot going on, and top of mind is, finding out what the needs are of our businesses and of our Montgomery County businesses, and then connecting them with the job seekers.
I appreciate that. Dr. Rai, yes, go ahead.
Yes, I think to answer Councilmember Joando's question, there are a number of factors. In some areas, the salary structure is not strong enough. That's early child care comes to mind. In some areas, certainly the capacity issues are huge. Teaching is certainly an area. If you look at Blueprint for Maryland future report, it predicts 15,000 new teachers for the state of Maryland. 34,000 nurses. There are capacity issues, right? IT, if you look at just the last 3 years, unique job postings in the IT area. IT means data science, IT, cybersecurity, all that. In DMV region. In last 3 years, I believe 1.5 million unique job postings. 9,000 hires every month in IT in our region. And if you look at 3 years, how many certificates and degrees we produced, all colleges, higher education in the DMV region, it was less than 150,000. So for 1.5 million unique job posting we had. So the capacity issues are there. Starting in middle college is extremely important. That's why Montgomery Can Code is a really very powerful model for IT industry, where education, government, and certainly Apple and other IT companies take the lead. I think that's important model. Montgomery Can Teach. We will need that, right? Because we want more students to apply for early college opportunities in teaching. Behavioral health, MCPS, MC together, we are starting early college in behavioral health next fall. And college's behavioral health degree program just got approved from MHAC. And USG already has the UMBC's program where our program is articulated. So a lot of these things we are doing quite well. But I think, as Dr. Kadenium very well, she put it very well, we need to create the ecosystem, focus on certain sectors where we have really high demand, and starting from middle schools all the way up to USG, and find a way to do this in a financially sustainable way.
That's very helpful. And then Dr. Kadamian, did you have something to add? Brief.
I just, if it's, you posed two questions, one about the immediate, and then the second about pathways. I just wanted to say, pathways is going to require probably a two-pronged strategy. One is investing in the components, the infrastructure of it, where we have some traction, where we can grow it. But the other is a more comprehensive planning approach. And I think, a great place to start would be to say, let's look at the life sciences, biotechnology. And let's convene. Let's bring together. Let's work to bring together in a convening. What is the demand right now? Where are the jobs? What are the needs in a very particular area of the life sciences? Let's bring together all of our academic partners to say, where are we meeting those needs and where are we falling short? And let's look across the whole pathway to say, where do we need to push learning, deeper into MCPS and into K and pre-K and beyond, and where do we need to do more boot camps and where do we need to do micro-credentialing things? I think if we started off with a kind of comprehensive convening to work together as business, government, academia, all of the partners at the table to kind of understand the challenge in a really creative way, and then to use that as a catalyst for the planning and the work across the year to start thinking comprehensively about that. You could do a convening every year on a particular pathway that kicked off some of these things. So I think there's a high level planning challenge and a kind of comprehensive understanding challenge. And then there's the investment in the different components across the pathways as well. But I put that out there as something we might want to think about.
It sounds like a great USG task. You're going to volunteer yourself to do that. But no, I think that you could also set the model, set the kind of structure of that and tackle it bit by bit. And what a better place, no better place to start than that area where we have so much activity happening. I'll turn it back over to the chair. I see Mr. Greenfield has his hand up, but Dr. Greenfield, excuse me.
Sure. I think this has been spoken to or alluded to, but I think community awareness, especially among our most vulnerable populations, awareness of what pathways we offer is critical. We've got great pathways in place. We've got great connections. We have an ecosystem. But the average person doesn't know, how do I become a certified medical assistant? How do I become a cybersecurity professional? Where do I start? Is it right for me? And I noticed that a nearby jurisdiction, I was driving through and I saw on buses and on billboards, there is a career awareness campaign underway to make sure every resident knows what the career pathways are and knows specifically, how do I get on ramp?
Yeah.
Where do I start? And I think increasing that awareness will go a long way toward bringing people to our career pathways and to our ecosystem.
Appreciate that. Those are some great answers. I hope we were taking note. I was, because there's like 5, 10, or 6 things in there that we need to do. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Yeah, no. And let me just echo, and that Chair Reamer and I were just texting back and forth and saying, let's do that. So yes, all of that. And I know that Mr. Smith has been taking copious notes, and we'll make sure that we follow up with partners. The key in this whole thing is we've got big asks of you. We asked you to think big. Now we're asking you to put those in proposal form so that we can help to continue to fund that. We will need to do some of that, as well as the county helping to support by continuing to publicize and promote the great pathways that we now are having. So thank you very much, Dean Greenfield, for really representing that. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Friedson, but I did just want, for my colleagues, for level setting, we do have an Education and Culture Committee meeting that's supposed to start at 3. I anticipate that will only take about 10 or 15 minutes. It's pretty pro forma. So from that respect, we're going to start that at 3:15. So I'm just telling some of our staff that are dealing with that, we're going to actually make that 3:15 meeting. We should be done by 3:25. I know that Councilmember Navarro has a hard stop at 3:30. So I promised her we will get her out in time. But I did want to turn to Councilmember Friedson, who's been very patiently waiting. We also do have another piece of this, which is with Mikhail as well. So Councilmember Friedson.
Sure. Well, I promise I won't yield all, 17 minutes of what's remaining. First off, I just appreciate the conversation. There's a tremendous amount of energy and talent here. And if we can bottle up this group and some of these ideas and turn them into that call to action that Dr. Kademian was noting earlier that everybody has participated in, certainly we're going to see some significant dividends in the county. I did just want to note there was a significant economic report that was just issued by the Economic Development Corporation. There are four main elements in terms of the categories of recommendations. The first two speak exactly to what we're talking about right now. So I just wanted to kind of lift that up and highlight it. The first one is based on knowledge assets. And that's really what this is, and building on and doubling down on our strategic assets in the, what are referred to in the report as opportunity to win industries. We've been talking about those: hospitality, biohealth. The opportunity to win industries are the ones that we already are global leaders in, and we can build off of those strengths. And then number two is human assets. And that's literally the entire basis of this conversation. How do we build on the greatest strength that we have in Montgomery County, which is our human talent? We are, both building human talent here, and we are attracting human talent because of our assets from all over the world. The question is, what are we going to do with it? We've got the best ingredients anywhere on the planet, and can we use those ingredients to be as strong as the sum of our parts? I think that's the question for all of us. That's the call to action for all of us. But I did just think it was really important to connect that economic report, because none of that report's recommendation would be possible if we can't get what we're talking about here right. And if we can't focus and don't focus on it. And that starts very early, before kindergarten, I would note, for all of us, hopefully well before kindergarten. But it also continues well past 12th grade. And, for too long, county governments have focused on a narrow window of time, a 12, 13, 14, 15-year window. And we're responsible for people for 70, 80, 90, 100 years. And so we need to make sure that we're, providing that type of infrastructure. But, I want to make sure as part of this conversation that we're, fully engaging our business partners. I know each of those who are participating today are doing that work individually, but I think as part of this holistic conversation, that has to be a formalized part of our process for figuring out how we move forward. And so I hope that will continue to be the case. And I just really look forward to seeing us turn some of these ideas into reality and build on some of the real positive programs that have already been put into place. And I think we're ripe for it. We just think of all the investments that we've made in some of these programming ideas that have come up, but also in facilities. We've got the Dr. Kademian's bioengineering and science facility at Montgomery College. I know, we have, a number of new facilities and growing there into the East County, which we're all excited about. And so there's just tremendous opportunity here to have the type of facilities that our residents need, and we need to use those facilities and have the type of leadership and coordination and collaboration. So appreciate everybody's work. I will save the rest of my questions for offline, since there's obviously a lot of follow-up here, and I know we've got a lot of homework assignments for everybody. But I just want to appreciate everybody's hard work and leadership, and look forward to next steps.
Yeah, so I think, again, we're going to definitely have to come back to this as we evaluate the proposals that will be given to us, as well as we continue to strategize about ways to continue to meet the need. I want to bring in, so I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I want to bring in Kathy Stevens, the Executive Director of McHale, at this point, because all of this works hand in hand, and Councilmember Navarro highlighted it in terms of the literacy piece, which is really important, because we want to make sure that those folks that are, again, coming to our Welcome Back Center, those folks that are coming to the Gilchrist Center and being able to, who have been in professional careers in their home countries and are coming here and looking to be able to go right into career pathways here, we need to make sure that we're facilitating that, not just in terms of pathways, but also in terms of language acquisition. And we know that Mikhail does such a great job of that. I encourage everybody else to stay on, but we are pivoting to another part of the discussion, which is an overview of some of the grants that we did and we gave to Mikhail, understanding that this workforce development piece is so big. I will just highlight that through Montgomery College and through USG, and of course at Montgomery County Public Schools, the majority of the people who matriculate through all of those institutions are people of color. That's important. And a very high percentage of them are part of our immigrant population. Sometimes majority, sometimes, significant portion, but either way. And so it's really an important part of our overall strategy to ensure that we're getting them the language acquisition that they need. So let me turn, and I really want to thank Carolyn Chen for the great packet. Carolyn, I'm going to dispense of that and just go straight to Kathy. But Kathy did want to give you an opportunity to talk about what you're seeing and what we need to continue to do, especially when it comes to language acquisition and workforce development.
Thank you, Craig, Councilmember Rice, and everyone who's on the call. Sorry about that. We could talk about this for a day, actually. So I'm going to try to be super brief here, knowing the time that we have. Language acquisition and workforce development are just inextricably linked, right? Because so many of our adult learners are coming because they want to be able to do better in a job, get a different job, apply for a job, help their kids get a job, whatever it might be. And, I think I'd just make a couple overall points as we think about how to really increase our connectivity of our systems. We have a great K through 12 system. We have great higher ed with MC and USG. And at the same time, there's this whole other sphere of adult education that plays into that, where it's someone going to a language class, it's someone going to a nonprofit to get some help with a resume or the skills they need. So I think what we are seeing is that, and I put this in some of the memo that I gave to Carolyn for the packet, is that many of our ESOL programs are just naturally having to fill some gaps for workforce development, making connections to employers. You saw that with the Vietnamese American Service Association during the pandemic. They had folks who they were helping get jobs at Amazon, didn't have a high enough level of English to fill out the online application, but they did it. They just took care of that. And we know that language programs are trusted spaces, whether it is with a nonprofit that's geared to that person's country of origin, or whether it's a faith-based organization. That's a trusted point of entry. And certainly I know how I used to work at Montgomery College. I know how valuable and wonderful that all their programs are, but sometimes that's not the first point of entry that is easiest, most comfortable, most accessible to our neighbors in this area. So just thinking through how we really acknowledge the work and continue to build on the nonprofits, not just those in the Mikhail Coalition that are doing English, but the great work that places like Career Catchers are doing, and certainly other nonprofits like that. They are a part of this. We have to see it as a system that includes them and includes WorkSource and includes the college and includes USG, because if we don't, we're really perpetuating the silos that I think have developed over the years with this. One of the things that Mikhail did was right when I started at the organization. So it was 2013, 2014. And I've talked with Anthony Featherstone about this and some others. At that point, the needs that our ESOL programs were seeing were how do the instructors in the classes and the program managers know where to refer their learners to for workforce development, if it's a skill building, if it's a resume writing, whatever it might be. And at that point, we generated this, I'm going to call it a ginormous spreadsheet, because that's what it was, that listed programs from nonprofits on up to the college and USG, how to get in touch with those folks, how many people they served, what level of English was needed to be most successful with that type of training or that type of program. And I know that's what WorkSource is working on now, but we really need to make sure that we laser in on that and make sure that the instructors, the boots on the ground in our system, but also any case managers at any of our nonprofits, whether it's Manafood or whether it's a housing organization or any of my other colleagues in the nonprofit world, they know where and how to refer people and what people are going to need to be successful going to that organization. Is it a level of English? Is it a certain skill? That kind of thing. Because if we don't equip the referral points with that, we set people up for a really frustrating experience and feeling like the system has failed them because they go somewhere and they can't be helped, or they feel frustrated because they don't have what it takes to get what they need there. So I'm looking forward to having that all come together. And certainly that was one of the initial ideas where we knew WorkSource could really come through to us. But I know my colleagues at all of our programs are really looking forward to that as well. And so I think it's just important to think about, as we think about adult education in general, certainly ESOL is part of that, skill building is part of that, upskilling is part of that. This is a nationwide challenge. It's just part of a nationwide conversation yesterday about this. This is not just Montgomery County. The systems for adult ed are not as strong as they are for K through 12. It's not as accessible to people to understand even what adult education is. Is it going to Montgomery College? Is it going to a nonprofit for skill building? Is it coming to an ESOL class? And it's a great variety. And we have work that we can do on an awareness building level for that. But I think at this point, all of our McHale programs are very interested in making sure they have the tools they need to refer adult learners who are just jonesing to get jobs, right? And have some skills and may not see themselves. I struggle with this, the language we use around talent pipeline. I don't know whether they see themselves as having those talents and what that actually means when it's transferable skills, when it's things that they can do. So I think we have work to do in terms of, someone said it earlier, in terms of making sure people know where to go and that it's available to them, that it may be low cost or free of cost and what they can do. So I probably spoke longer than you wanted me to, Mr. Chair, but those are some initial thoughts that I have on this.
No, Kathy, it was really important. It really, really was, because what we need to do is continue to make sure that we're leaving no stone unturned as we continue to move forward down this path of connecting everybody with those career pathways, right? So it's one of those where it's oftentimes, unfortunately, and Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Albornoz are leaders in this in terms of reminding us about that we can't just simply assume that because we have a program and everybody will avail themselves of it. Well, if you can't read English and don't know what the program describes in terms of the opportunities that are presented to you, how in the heck are you going to then take advantage of it? That's why her leadership programs that she spearheaded, those kinds of things are so great, because again, it allows people in the community to be that voice to say, hey, and oh, by the way, there are these great things that are out there, and speak to them of certainty in terms of them having a trusted source of that connectivity in their communities, right? So it's building off of things like that that are incredibly important, but it also is the core of having the language mastery. And that is something that we know, I was looking at your packet, and when it came to jobs like Amazon, even, you have to have some of those basic skills, right? And so folks think, well, even, you can work in a warehouse, but you have to be able to understand the equipment and follow the directions and all those kinds of things that go along with it. And so even when it comes to some of our more traditional skill jobs, the reality is you still have to have some sort of mastery of the English language. And that's why it'll never go away in terms of why that we still have to have that need, while certainly having and being bilingual is a plus. It's bilingual. It's not just one language. And so that's the key in this whole thing, is that let's help to develop that next set. I mean, because I just imagine, again, as we talked about it and said, those folks who have come into this country who already have experience, workforce experience in a multitude of different areas and sectors, doctors, nurses, bioengineers, all kinds of stuff, but just need to master the English language to be able to enter our workforce and be able to do the same thing. and are oftentimes underemployed because they don't have that mastery of the English language. So let's work on that too. Let's make sure that we have that together. Any questions or comments from my colleagues before we wrap it up? I think this has been amazing. Chair Reamer, I want to thank you again for really spearheading us and getting this meeting set. This is incredible. We've got some great takeaways, and I really want to thank each and every one of the partners who have thought big. You have thought outside of the box and really come up with ways in which we can really move this, not needle. I mean, we're moving boulders at this point, and that's a big deal. So let's continue down that pathway. Let's make sure that we're making these things happen. Please think bold in terms of your proposals that you're presenting to the council, and we'll take those up. So with that, I think we are adjourned. All right. Thank you so much. And staff, thank you again for all of your great work as well. Education and culture, we're going to go to the next meeting.